All right, guys. I think we're going to shift the channel up a bit. We'll move it a different direction. I know the viewings dropped off, but I've never really been bothered about the views, to be fair. And since I'm not in the Philippines anymore, a lot of the stuff people like is about the Philippines, but I find people argue too much there. I find a lot of people are very opinionated and target each other for some of the dumbest reasons. Um, so for me, I want to sort of sidestep that. So the Philippine stuff's parked for now. Until I go back out and I do some other trips later on. The other side of this being is the Philippines is in a peculiar spot at the minute relating to its current president, and they've got Duterte in The Hague. The vice president is Duterte's daughter, and we could end up with a bloody civil war if we're not careful. So we'll park the Philippines. We'll park Western politics because that's messy, and I've decided to do this analogy of a post box. It's like getting a letter, putting a stamp on, and posting it. That's the election. Now, I've got to admit, I didn't put a letter on the post box. I didn't post a letter. I ended up with Keir Starmer. It was worse than my parcel I sent the other day, where the post office put the wrong address on and sent it back to the house. So I then had to go all the way back and post it a week later. But the point being is, once it's left our hands in the post box, there's nothing we can do about it until it comes back, or we get reply, or something changes. So we're parking that for now. What I want to focus on is the stuff we can do and positive stuff. And I'm not a everything's positive type guy. More a case of the moving forward and steering direction is far more important. So there's still crap going on. I'm not delusional. It's just that I don't want to talk about it on here. So what I thought is there's some things, I wrote them here, which I went through in the last video that I didn't post. So I've got a list of things now, so I now have to explain what I'm thinking we do on the channel. One is the investments, and I've already done a couple of trading 212 videos, and I want to do some other videos explaining about investing before we get into investing. So I've already put £500 in that now. I've topped it up again to get us to the 500, so it's now a starting point. See, the weird thing is, I don't know where to start with finances with all you guys, because I don't know how much money you've got. So I've got to take it from this separate fund. So I'm going to start with 500 and show how it can grow. Right? Simple as that. I've got another investment fund which has got thousands in there, tens of thousands in there. I'm not going to share that one. That's another investment piece. Pensions is another one, but I don't really want to talk about pensions because most of you get them organised by your pension advisor from work or whatever already. So just having a pension is the best thing I can recommend. Having a look at it yourself. Myself, I prefer ISAs. We've had these conversations on this channel before about the benefits of, if you're self-employed, I believe you can shove all your income in a year into a pension tax-free. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if you did that for a few years, in theory, you can actually build your pot in a very quick time, as long as you can find other ways to make money. But anyway, so investments is going to be stocks, shares, bonds, a bit on the pensions, but not too much. ISAs, which are independent savings accounts, ETFs, and other bits and pieces, which will bore some of you to tears and some of you will find it interesting. And dividends. Dividends is something, and this is why my accounts are separated. The new 212's got different accounts. There's like one that's more stocks and shares, and then there's one that is 19% dividends, because it's going to show the compounding, because in a year's time we can see the percentages of growth on both. Doesn't matter how much money's in them both, it's the percentages of growth. So that's the investments. Debt reduction. If you've got credit cards, don't start looking at investments till you got rid of your credit cards. You'll be losing more in your credit cards than you will gain in interest in your investments. You're better off wiping that out. That's perfectly frank. Because obviously, I got a credit card the other day, actually. The first time I've had one for a few years. I did get an Amazon one before because there was some sort of incentive to it. And then they cancelled it because I didn't use it. But I could use the incentive to. I think it was I could buy something and they'd give me 0% interest over 3 months. But I paid it off within the 3 months, so then I didn't need the credit card, so they cancelled it. But I just got a Tesco one for mileage for work, so I could track it separately. But anyway, the point being is, credit cards are normally significantly higher. The interest rate's 20% or whatever per year, plus the penalty charges for late payments and all that sort of stuff. They're bad news, really bad news. My life got a lot easier when I had no credit cards, and that's going back in my 20s to 30s, early 30s, late 20s maybe not to my 30s, early 30s. They were financially crippling. They really were, and it was hard to actually just keep afloat once they get in a bad way. And how did I get in there? I'm not talking about that. I got enough grief last time when I brought it up, relating to somebody else. So debt reduction, we'll do some topics on that. Future directions. The reason I put that out there, and I'll probably forget why I said this later, but future directions are where you set up where you want to be next. So it could be your goals, buying a house, getting your first car, getting your first motorbike, traveling the world. It's where you end up. But it also includes training, career development, and everything. That's why it's fairly open, and you'll probably see, I've already noticed some of the other stuff later down as well, in the sense of personal development, but hey ho. Next one is maintaining self. Maintaining self is not about the gym. It's about maintaining yourself. So one of the things I recognised in recent years, and you probably noticed I've been spending a lot more money on music lately, is I gave up a hell of a lot for A, career, B, relationships, and C, just to keep afloat. So one of the big changes I made a long time ago was I stopped video gaming for a long time, because I used to be heavily into video gaming, but then I started just focus on the corporate world, and that's how I sort of moved up the ladder. I developed very quickly once I changed from being day-to-day Matt to progressive Matt, and not in a political way, which isn't progressive. I focused on what I needed to do to get on the ladder. Then I focused on the development. As you can hear with my, just done that level 7 course, I'm looking at an MBA. I've actually got a startup course coming up probably this month. I've signed up for a business startup fund, which it would be nice if I learned something. I'm finding a lot of stuff too generic and stuff I already know, but that shows my determination on this, because a lot of the problems you have, which is why it's maintaining self, is because your worst critic is friends, family, and 100% number one is yourself. So for me, I'm in a precarious position of going down the route of personal development with my own entities, business-wise, etc., because I've got too many dependents. If I sat in the UK, not too bad, because let's face it, if it went bust, I'd just go and sit and live off the state like everybody else. But with a wife and kids in Spain, I don't have that luxury. So I've got dependents that limit what I can do. Doesn't mean I don't develop. It just means I take a little more of a defensive and calculated view forward. But I want to move that to more strategic and moving faster. Hence, I'm doing a lot on investments now because I've got some cash, limited time. So start with the investments and then start looking at some trading. I'll do some trading again, which I did quite well before on. So that's as an example, is a maintaining self, because I slipped into the old past, which is why I've become fixated on work, and it's sucked up my life for the last 6 years now. And I need to step that back. It hasn't developed my career, it hasn't shaped me. Oh, well, to be fair, I did do my degree, so okay. It hasn't projected me forward very rapidly. I've got to admit, some of the stuff that's been going on has hindered me with the people I've had to work with. But at the same time, I'm going back to my roots. This is where I got music. So I bought a CD player. I've got a CD player. Little tip on music: CDs seem dirt cheap on eBay and Amazon second hand. Why pay full price? But also, it's what makes you happy. See, I've got a very good ear for music, and I think I should have gone into being a sound engineer because I'm actually qualified electronics engineer in sound and video. That's where I started a long time ago, but I ended up moving into other things. And I think I should have stayed with music because I love music. So, guitar over there. Going to start playing it a bit more. And obviously, my son plays almost everything and asked for a cello for his birthday. So, my point being is, you got to realise that at some point, the stuff you gave up, you may get past the age that you can do it. So, check yourself. Have you given up something you shouldn't have done? Instead of whinging about it, like me, go buy a guitar, go and do something. Even if it sits there for the next year before I start playing it, it's there saying, Matt, I'm here. You should start playing me. It doesn't even need to be that complicated. It could be something you've always wanted to see if you could get a degree. Do it. Do it. It's not about other people, it's about you. Everything's about you. Everyone tells you what you should be doing. That's their opinions. That's what suits them. That's their comfort zone. That's what they think based on what they know. It's not based on what's in here. That's you. You need to do what suits you. So that was maintaining self. Which also I didn't get into health. Health's a different thing. Health's a bit broad. I've got to admit, there's enough people out there contradicting each other that all flexing their muscles and kissing their arms and whatever. That my view on it, I'm still testing the waters myself. So I do smoothies. I do more meat orientated, and I do feel that I need the meat and the smoothies to balance out the fact that I need that nutrition and fruit and stuff together. Otherwise I start feeling low. So I can't just do one or the other. It doesn't seem right. My body doesn't seem happy with it. So the point being is, that's what's working for me. It doesn't mean it works for everybody. This is the weird thing, because you've got to bear in mind your genetics are based on where you originally came from. So for me, I'm Northern European, so we eat a lot of meat. We have a lot of fish, things like that. But these days in the UK, we hardly eat any fish. But I actually enjoy fish, but I can't be bothered to cook it. So the health stuff. I'm parked to one side, except when I find something useful or interesting, I'll bring it up. Next one is the personal development. The personal development, I think I can develop this in a few ways. We've already talked about finances in one direction, but we've also done some videos previous on goals and things. I may have to sit and restructure some of my videos because I think a lot of the material is already there. But also, I buy a lot of books, a serious amount of books. So my most recent ones, just for a bit of perspective. This is the Harvard Business Review for generative AI for managers. Buying a small business. Inside the Leaders Club. The Art of Conversation. But I have a lot more, as you can see over there. So a lot of these books are rubbish, I'll be honest with you, but it all depends on your level of knowledge, understanding, confidence, etc. So some of these books to me seem a waste of time, but as my wife says to me, don't assume everybody knows what you know. So what I think I'll do with some of this stuff is actually just share my insights from the book, and it may resonate or may not, but the point being is, from a personal development point of view, I think I'll start talking a bit more around business stuff. So I will put business, and I'll be like, business, the art of conversation, business, strategic leadership, business. So you go, I don't want to watch that one. So you can select what you want to watch. But the point being, I do some of the stuff on the business stuff. I do some of the stuff around career development. I do some of the stuff around getting your funding for training. Do some of the stuff on what's the potential jobs out of it. And then I move on to other stuff which are more about personal business development. And one of the things I'm looking at more is buying an existing business. There's a lot of companies out there and small firms that the owners are getting too old to run them, but they're viable. They'll just take over. A lot of people just want out, but they don't want it going to just anybody. They don't want it being shut down. They want to keep the business ticking over. They want to still say, oh, that was our shop. Remember, we always used to do that sort of level of ownership. So I think there's opportunities in that. And I've seen it in the UK on some very small firms, micro firms. But they make good money. And they're often doing tiny things, teeny tiny things. Like 2 injection molders that are just making a specific product, and they just make thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of the same product year in, year out in their garage. Tiny little business, boringly mundane job, but the fact is it's sustainable. There are so many different variants to that as well. That was just a very basic example of micro engineering, shall we call it, where the contract's already there. They're supporting British businesses that need these parts. They want consistent quality because the impact of poor quality impacts the actual final product. So the fact is they want somebody they can rely on. So they go to the same firm, even if the price will go up slightly. The business is solid. There's another business I know, their whole business operates on the little plastic tips on surgical needles. That's all they produce. Crazy, yeah? But there's lots of these little businesses, and they have things that happen to them that can change their perspective. A good example was, well, it's a bad example actually, when somebody has a cancer scare. They had to have treatment, had to do this, had to do that, and suddenly, from working an 18-hour day in their own factory, they don't want to be there anymore. Their whole perspective changed because they've spent their entire life working. There you go. So business ideas will be another level. Falls under personal development, but I think we're going to have to do a subcategory: business development under personal development, because we have to look at how we're going to run them. Whether we're actually looking at running the business ourselves, whether, because if we're running it ourselves, it's personal development. If we actually start to develop a collection or franchise or whatever you want to do with it, then it's a slightly different direction. So I think we'll go down that avenue as well. But also personal development is your well-being, your health. I don't like the word well-being, I've got to admit. I just find it overused and a bit generic. Being well in yourself. The key to all to me is quite simply just being content. If you're content, you're 90% there. You can live on a lot less if you're content, because a lot of the stuff that you're projecting is being told to you. So once you can remove those projections, you don't need the bigger car, the bigger house, or anything else. And then you start stacking in your investments instead. And then instead of having a lease, the big mortgage or whatever, you buy it out of interest, where everything becomes free because you invested in it a long time ago. So the personal development will broaden out as we go. Another one is being over 50. The reason I bring this one up is, this may shock you, I am actually over 50. I know I still look 21, but I'm not 21. I haven't been for some time. Joking aside, the reason I want to bring this one up is the political climate's quite bad at the minute. There's a lot of people worried about their futures and everything else, and I just want to say I'm over 50, and I want to talk about finances. I want to show you where you are in life. A lot of the stuff in the UK is heavily skewed, so don't think about it as bad as they're telling you, because the stats are not right. What do you mean? Right. So if I told you the average Brit is over 50 is worth, I don't know, £380,000, just off the top of my head, there's probably 300 to 400,000, I'd guess. You'll be thinking that's extortion. Nobody's got that. But on paper, they took into account your mortgage and your house. The value is the house. It's not in your bank. It's not in investments. It's not in stocks. It's not in liquid assets. It's not what's that in your bank account, is it? So when you factor those things in, your life's not as bad as you think. Now, I'll be honest with you, if I start telling you about mine, I'm ahead of the curve in many ways, because I don't have that level of assets. Sorry, false assets. So I don't have a £400,000 house. I've got my property in Spain that's nearly paid. I've got my property in the Philippines, which is fully paid. I've got stocks and shares in ISAs, investments, etc. On paper, if in the same paperwork that they use, I look like I'm a bit behind, but in reality, I'm ahead because my cash is liquid. See, my house, because the ratio on the house means that there's less than 50,000 left on the mortgage. 50,000 euros, that's £40,000. And the reason I've stopped paying it off so quickly now is in investments. Because the ratio, the interest on the mortgage is currently around 4% or whatever it is at the minute. My ISAs for Vanguard are earning 13% a year. It wouldn't make any sense to take the money out of my ISAs and pay the mortgage off. The money in my accounts earn more than the interest on the mortgage. And this is why I say It's hard to do this, because it's right behind me. So this is what I want to talk about, the bigger picture. But I want to make sure you guys, if you are over 50, is A, you're not alone, and B, you're probably not as bad off as you think. And I say that because the media always try to make it negative. They're never saying, well done, you're ahead of the game. It's always trying to sell you a service. So the over 50 thing, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about relationships and all that sort of stuff. And it'll end up with a lot more shorter videos because this one's 25 minutes already, but I wanted to cover all these topics today. And the last one will be traveling young and old. This will be an interesting one for me as well, because you got to bear in mind, I went to the Philippines in my early 30s, where predominantly everybody was nearly twice my age when I first went there. There's now a lot of younger guys that have gone out that way. But that sort of environment grows you up quite quick, in the sense of there's no unemployment benefit, there's no safety nets, you're self-reliant. Also, it can be quite brutal. When you look at, when I was out there, you got earthquakes, typhoons. What have we had worse than that? Yeah, earthquakes, typhoons, ferry disasters. Some of the pedophile rings were also picked up. And then obviously a lot of corruption issues in the country. You get the real world, because in the UK, for example, they lie to us all the time. I find not just the Philippines, but other countries, it's a bit more obvious and in your face. The corruption of half-finished roads and everything else, where the UK, they just blame it on the last politicians, whether it's Conservative or Labour. The pigs are all in the trough, but they're always blaming the last ones that were there. So I think travelling young and old is going to be a good one. And depending on how something comes out, I may even get a van to convert it in Spain and turn it into a bit of a camper piece, because Ulby's getting older now, and I've got to admit, I'm still as young as I was when I was younger. My bones may take longer to heal, but I'm still loving going to music concerts and want my motorbike and doing stuff. So I'm still like I was in my early 20s. It's just it takes longer to heal. So the good thing is, it'll be like spending time with me, so we'll enjoy that time. We'll do stuff. Maybe we'll do some more sailing stuff I've done. So maybe do a bit of sailing, a bit of scuba, a bit of snorkeling. Gotta admit, I can't do anything with parachutes that anymore. My left ankle's completely shot. But maybe some flying. I wouldn't mind a micro light or something like that. Yeah. But it's whether my wife will let him go on one. Me, I'll just have to put the insurance policy for me. But those types of things, travel and experiences. That's actually a good one about the experiences, because here in Northampton, I've got weekends to actually do stuff and I just don't. So this may kick me up the backside to actually do something productive. But that's what I'm thinking. Love to know your thoughts. I'll probably follow up with a couple of little videos after this one, once I've converted these notes onto a notebook, so I can get this to write something else on it. Alright guys, enjoy the weekend. Take care.